Habarigani, my brothers and sisters. It's the appropriate greeting to begin a Kwanzaa, and today the appropriate response to the greeting of Habarigani, or what's the news, is NIA, purpose. What are we all about? Unless you stand for something, you will fall for anything. We continue our series in the celebration of Kwanzaa 2020 by paying focus to the principle of NIA today, to make ourselves people of purpose. And Dr. Karinga, in his description of the principle purpose, says to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. So tonight we're going to go through our Kwanzaa celebration, and in your mind's eye, I would hope that you would see and hear the drummers of Africa. You know, in past days we've talked about communications in Mother Africa. Well, for the youngsters who are listening, there was no internet, there was no television, there were no newspapers. There were only griots and drums. And one of the primary ways that we communicated in the past was through the use of drums. And as we begin our Kwanzaa celebration today, I ask you to envision in your mind the drummers of Africa sending messages of purpose, of unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, and faith to the members of the community and to neighboring communities. So as we listen in our mind's eye to the drummers of Africa in the background, we also would like to proceed with our Kwanzaa celebration, and as the Kwanzaa master, yours truly, Dr. Al Gurrier, we will proceed. And we begin by pouring libations. And as we pour libations, we pay tribute and honor to those who have gone before us. But at this point, I'd like to pay tribute and honor to those who have stepped forth to sponsor our activities of the day. And I speak of the Samuel L. Smith Educational Foundation and the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation of Nevada. Those are our two sponsoring agencies who have been supportive of our celebration of Kwanzaa and our nightly presentation of the principles of the day. I'd also like to do something a little different. As a teacher, one of the things we would hope and expect that our students would do would be to emulate us. And if you think about it, the first and foremost teachers of children are their parents. So it's what we do as parents that communicate to our children the values, the principles, and the guidelines, and in turn help them to set goals to accomplish their lives. And that's what NIA is. It's a way of helping us to guide our lives by giving us a purpose, a reason for doing things. And we do things based on the values and the things that we hold sacred and important to us. So those are the elements of our character. So it's our character that directs us in life. So as we look at the celebration of Kwanzaa today, and in particular the celebration of our principle of NIA, we call forth those who have gone before us. And the personal presentation that I indicated is that I will call forth the names of some of my sheroes and heroes, and I'll explain when I finish. Alfred George Gurrier, Samuel Gurrier, Hannah Wilkins, Susie Wilkins, Alfred James Gurrier, Jenny LeBlanc Robichaud, Edna Ricard, May Lillian Porsche, Aubrey Webb, Irene Webb. Those are my personal heroes. Bessie Weir Webb, Alfred James Gurrier, and Edna Ricard Gurrier. They were my parents. And the first elders and role models in our lives are our parents and our grandparents, aunts and uncles, our teachers, and they are the people who help us to establish the set of principles that will guide our lives. And those principles are very important. So as we pour libations today, we recognize the ancestors of those who have gone before us. And I ask you in particular, in your heart and in your mind, to call forth those individuals who have been the sheroes and heroes in your individual life. Just as you at this time think of your parents and grandparents and loved ones who have taught you to love, in the future, as you and your children, and then as your children and children's children celebrate Kwanzaa, they will call to mind the values and principles that you have taught to them. That's why Dr. Karinga says it's so very, very important that we involve children in our celebration of Kwanzaa. So today we celebrate the principle of NIA Purpose. And the primary focus of my presentation today will be twofold. First of all, to make an effort to transmit what the developer thought and felt was the purpose of Kwanzaa. And then, as I've kind of indicated, we want to focus on and find ways of generating interest on the part of children and youngsters in Kwanzaa and the celebration of Kwanzaa. So we're going to conclude our activities today with the reading of a book written by a young woman by the name of Jawanda Ford, and it's called K is for Kwanzaa, and it's a Kwanzaa alphabet book. And because we want to make a concerted effort to signify the significance and importance of children in Kwanzaa, I'm going to try to read this book again, maybe on our last day's celebration, time permitting, but we'll definitely have the opportunity to read it tonight. And it's just one of the ways that we can involve our children in the celebration of Kwanzaa. So I'd like to start with sharing some information that Dr. Karinga gave us about the NIA, or purpose, for which he created Kwanzaa in 1966. And so if it was started in 1966, then this year we are in fact celebrating the 54th anniversary of Kwanzaa. And this year has further seen growth of the holiday in Kwanzaa, not just among African American people in the United States, but also in Africa, Brazil, and other countries of South America, in Canada and the Caribbean and Britain and other European countries, and even in India. And now, according to our research, Kwanzaa is celebrated on every continent on this earth. So in 54 years, there is something about Kwanzaa that the world has accepted and gravitated to. And of course, that something is the principles, which are a very solid, sound set of values by which to live the good life. Kwanzaa grows among African people because it speaks to their needs and appreciation for its cultural vision of life-affirming values, values which celebrate and reinforce family, community, and culture. That's the purpose of Kwanzaa. That's the NIA of Kwanzaa, to celebrate and reinforce family, community, and culture. Those are all external forces. Even more significant to the celebration of family, community, and culture is the celebration of us as individuals. Kwanzaa is a process that helps us to learn about our history and our culture in order that we can become stronger, more positive people. And it all begins with you and me. And the effort begins with you and me. And as we looked at each of the principles during the week, we could see where, for example, when we talked about cooperative work and responsibility, that's an individual kind of thing. And another night when I talked with the youngsters about how they have to do the work, and I'm going to be talking with children when we have our Imani celebration about doing the work. That is how we achieve, how we grow. So part of a purpose means goal setting, and goal setting must address doing the work. And of course, we can only achieve the work that we do if we do it as reasonable, responsible individuals who use our God-given talent to accomplish what we set out to do. Kwanzaa grows because it represents an important way for Africans to speak to their own special cultural truth in a multicultural world. It grows because it reaffirms a rich and most ancient tradition that lays claims to the first religion, ethical, and scientific text, and introduces us to a basic discipline in our own culture in a rich and meaningful way. And it grows because it brings us together from all countries, all religions, all traditions, all classes, all ages, all generations, and all political persuasions on common ground of our Africanness in all of its historical and cultural diversity and unity. As I've said before, Kwanzaa is a non-political, non-religious, non-heroic holiday. But again, it brings us together. All countries, religions, classes, ages, generations, political persuasion, white, black, red, yellow, green, regardless of ethnic or religious affiliation. People have begun to adopt and accept the principles of Kwanzaa as a way of us to live together. The vision and values of Kwanzaa revolve around the practices of living fundamental activities which celebrate and reinforce family, community, and culture. Kwanzaa is a time of ingathering of people in the rich, various harvest. And of course, that's what the word Kwanzaa means. Kwanzaa, K-W-A-N-Z-A, is a word Dr. Karinga found in the Swahili language that means first fruit. And it was from that word that he was motivated to name this process Kwanzaa, adding an additional A so that the word would have 7 letters and coincide with the other 7 elements of the celebration of Kwanzaa. It has been a time to come together and reinforce the bonds between us as a people in spite of our diversity. Thus, Africans who are Muslim, Christian, Jews, Hebrews, followers of ancient traditions of Yoruba, Mat, Dogon, Ashanti, Dinka, and other religious traditions, they also celebrate Kwanzaa. It is a cultural holiday, not a religious one. Indeed, African culture is derived in the home of immeasurable religious traditions. Likewise, old and young reach across generations and embrace and find in Kwanzaa a common ground of heritage and promise. Kwanzaa is a time of special reverence for the Creator and the creation. It's a point that I have not traditionally focused on, but one that at this moment I would like to, because I think it is significant. Kwanzaa is a time of special reverence of the Creator and creation. It doesn't necessarily have to have any religious connotations. Just open your eyes and you will see the beautiful sunrise and sunset. Who made the sunrise and who makes the sunset? You can be without sight and still be able to have a vision of the Creator. As we look around nature, look out your window and see a tree and say, only God can make a tree. So that's what's unique to the Kwanzaa celebration, that it pays special reverence to the Creator and creation. It is then a good time of thinking of the good in life, for life itself, for love, for friendship, for parents and children, the elders and youth, men and women, and for family and community and culture. And Kwanzaa invokes in us a recognition of all of those very important, significant components of our life. In retrospect, I review the Creator and creation, for love, which is the essence, for friendship, parents, children, youth, the elders, family, community, and culture. As a harvest celebration, Kwanzaa is also a time of thanksgiving for the earth and all that is in it, humans, birds, animals, plants, and all living things, water, air, land, and natural resources. Thank you, Creator. Thus, Kwanzaa is also a time for moral commitment to honor the Creator by honoring the creation and recommending ourselves to respect and preserve it. Those are good nias and purposes of Kwanzaa that are not commonly discussed. But that is a really significant and important part of Kwanzaa. And as Kwanzaa speaks to those elements of our essence and being, it has touched the hearts of people everywhere and is becoming more and more widely accepted. Kwanzaa is a time of communication and commemoration of the past. We started our celebration tonight by calling forth the names of elder. I used it as a personal opportunity to call forth the names of my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and those who have gone before us, those on whose backs we stand. It is then a time of honoring moral obligation to remember and praise those on whose shoulders we stand, those who have gone before us, to raise praise of their names and to those who gave their lives that we live fuller and more meaningful ones. Sure, I didn't call forth the names of Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela or Fannie Lou Hamer or Phyllis Wheatley tonight, but every night during the week, we have indeed paid tribute to our elders and those who have played a significant role in the development of our history and culture. Kwanzaa is also a time to appreciate our roles as heirs and custodians of a great legacy, and to recommit ourselves to honoring it by preserving it and expanding it. We are, as African people on the American continent, or African American, fathers and mothers of humanity and human civilization. We are sons and daughters of the Holocaust of enslavement and authors and heirs of the reaffirmation of our Americanness in the 60s. Each period leaves a legacy of challenge, struggle, and achievement. We honor each by learning it and living it. Yesterday we talked about, during the celebration of Kwanzaa, we talked about a very unique period of celebration of African American history, culture, and life in the United States. And it was called the Harlem Renaissance. And I indicated at the end of my libation, where I called forth the names of about 100 of the luminaries of the Harlem Renaissance, that it is my feeling in my heart that we are indeed about to enter another Renaissance. And I'm excited about being involved in an activity sponsored by the National Juneteenth Foundation of Nevada, where we're embarking upon a desert renaissance. And through the Juneteenth Foundation, which has adopted the principles of Nguzo Zaba as its leading principles, we plan to make a concerted effort to try to call attention and give exposure to the history, culture, and the contributions of African Americans in the 20th century, 100 years following the Harlem Renaissance. Kwanzaa is a time of recommitment to our highest ideals. It is a time of focus on thought and practice. That's the NIA. Thought and practice of our highest cultural vision and values, which in essence are ethical values, values of love, sisterhood, brotherhood, respect, and for the transcendence of human person, for elders of nature and all of the world of our Creator and His creation. It is here that the Nguzo Zaba, which we are focusing on each night, the 7 principles, serve as the central focus of Kwanzaa in thought and practice. These communicative values, which are both cultural and ethical, and are, of course, we're all familiar with since we've been celebrating them this week: Umoja, unity, kujichagulia, self-determination; Ujamaa, collective work and responsibility; Ujamaa, cooperative economics; NIA, purpose, which we celebrate tonight; Kuumba, creativity; and Imani, faith. And we are in the final analysis to define ourselves by the values and practices to which we lead. And this set of principles is a set of principles that will truly set us on a path to the good life. It is for this reason at Kwanzaa that we should remember and act on the ancient African teachings of Mat, which say, speak truth, do justice, and walk in the way of righteousness. Likewise, we speak truth and do justice, always showing preference to the most vulnerable among us. Thus, we must, as the text says, give food to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothes to the naked, and a boat to those without one. We spoke about that during our principle of cooperative economics. Moreover, we must be a father to the orphan, a husband to the widow, comfort to the sick, and staff of support to the aged, a shelter to the needy, a float for the downtrodden, and a ladder for those trapped in the pit. Kwanzaa NIA Purpose. That, brothers and sisters, was profound, because in essence it captures the NIA of Kwanzaa itself. Kwanzaa is a time for celebration of the good life, family, community, culture, leadership, and the bountifulness of the earth which we live. The wonders of the universe, the elder, the young, the human beings, persons in general, our history, our struggle for our liberation, and even higher levels of human life. Celebration is a ceremony, a commemoration, a respectful making and honoring, a praising and rejoicing. This and more is our holiday of Kwanzaa. That's what Kwanzaa is. That is the NIA of Kwanzaa. For those of you joining us for the first time, I hope that you've gleaned some information about the celebration of Kwanzaa and generally its purpose. There's one other component that I would like to share with you. While we do focus on the celebration of the principles, and they are the centerpiece of our daily celebration of Kwanzaa, in addition to our recognition of the principles, we have a group of symbols that are important parts of the Kwanzaa celebration and the Kwanzaa table. A Kwanzaa table can be any flat surface, and on this surface, the first thing we put down is a mat. It's called the mkika, and it's usually a straw mat. And when we read our book today, it will be when we get to a certain letter, we're going to talk about rafifa, which is a natural product that grows in Africa that's used to weave together to make mats out of a straw-like substance. So the first of the symbols of Kwanzaa is the mat. On top of the mat, we place the kanara. And the kanara is the collective, it represents the collective work of us as African American people worldwide. It is a strong, dominant representative figure that holds the 7 candles, which are called the Mishuma Saba. The 7 candles are one black candle, which is in the middle, and that black candle represents us as the people. And then to the right are 3 red candles, which represents which represents the struggle, and to the left are 3 green candles, which represents our hope and our future. Now, the red, black, and green colors are given to us by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who we spoke about in another of our sessions. And Marcus Garvey gave us these colors in the form of a flag that's called the Bandera, B-E-N-D-E-R-A. And the colors of the Bandera are red, black, and green. And one of the symbols, not one of the 7 basic symbols, but as you prepare your Kwanzaa table, it is recommended that you have a copy of the Bandera, which is a simple red, black, and green gathering of colors on cloth. I have a red, black, and green Bandera that I wore on my kufi during my recent Kwanzaa celebration at the West Las Vegas Arts Center. And it was simply made out of red, black, and green ribbon that had been sewn together. So you want to have a representation of the Bandera on your table. You want to have crops to represent what Kwanzaa is all about. It's about the crop. And that's what we as African people are all over the world. We are the crops of the world. And we nourish the world as a result of our being here, of our history, our culture, and the significant contributions to the world. So we demonstrate that by having on our Kwanzaa table the crop, which are called Mazoa, M-A-Z-A-O. And the crop can be fruits, vegetables, apples, oranges, peaches, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, red peppers, and a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. One particular vegetable that we have on our table that is very symbolic and important is the corn and or muhindi. And we take an ear of corn and we place it on our Kwanzaa table because that corn represents, for example, and in my home, that ear of corn represents me. And I suggest that even if you have to get a few ears of corn and break them in half, you have a piece of corn on your table that represents everybody in your house. And that ear of corn, this says to my oldest son, this is you. And those kernels in that ear of corn represent my children, my grandchildren, and my children's children. So it's important that we call to mind the importance of children and our future. And as Dr. Jeff taught me, Dr. Morris F.X. Jeff Jr., my mentor, said to me that our children are a message we send to the future. So if you want Kwanzaa to be around another 5,000 years, like some of our contributions, like the pyramids, then you need to embrace in your children an understanding and appreciation for the celebration of Kwanzaa, so that when your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren celebrate Kwanzaa, they will celebrate you in paying homage to you for sharing and exposing them to the celebration. The other significant component on the table is the Kikambo Cha Umoja. It is a cup. It is a cup I used earlier in the pouring of libation. Originally in the celebration, the Kwanzaa Cup was passed around in 1968 when I first celebrated Kwanzaa. The Kikambo Cha Umoja, the Cup of Unity, was actually passed around. So it was used for two things. It was for sharing the Kikambo, or liquid that was shared, and it also was used to pour water into the earth to nourish our ancestors and those who have gone before us. You want to have on your Kwanzaa table a copy of the set of principles, and they're very readily available either You can go to a bookstore and buy a book, and you can find the principles. You can go online. There are various ways where you can find copies of the set of principles of Nguzo Zaba. Make a copy of that and put that on your table. We encourage a poster of the Nguzo Zaba principles to be placed on the Kwanzaa table. And quite often in those families that really know how to celebrate, they finally have a karamu. It's usually done on the last day of Kwanzaa, but really we do a karamu every night. That is where we sit down and have a feast. We eat dinner with our family. Or today in the nuclear age, it's something that may not happen as common, but maybe once a week you and your family sit down and have a karamu, a celebration or a feast. I've become an advocate of not just celebrating Kwanzaa the last 7 days of a year, but I hope, and it is my dream and my NIA, to encourage my people and the people of this world to embrace the principles of Kwanzaa and to carry them daily through our lives. So as I reflect on the principle of the day of NIA Purpose, as a griot and teacher myself, I feel that part of my purpose during this coming year will be to introduce Kwanzaa into every gathering and every celebration and every greeting and meeting of community and family groups. I will begin my greeting with a habari gani and share with them and at least jog in their mind the importance and significance of celebrating the principles of Kwanzaa every day. So as I promised in this session, we would do a presentation of a book by a young lady. Her name is Jawanda Ford, and the illustration of most beautiful graphic pictures of this book were done by Ken Wilson Mack, and it's published by Cartwheel Books through and distributed through the Scholastic Incorporation book company, which is the book company that sponsors book sales in libraries and schools. So when you hear you hear your children talking about a book sale in their library, it's probably sponsored by the Scholastic company. And that might be an excellent opportunity for you to get one final thing that I want to mention in relation to your Kwanzaa table, and that's zawadi, and that's gifts. And one of the most significant and important gifts that we give is a zawadi, and we encourage you to give books. So today's session, we're actually reading a book about Kwanzaa. So I'm telling you how you might acquire books, and as you find your children are having book sales in their school, ask them to have the librarian or teacher to identify books about Kwanzaa. So now we begin, we go to our book of the day. It's called K is for Kwanzaa, an alphabet book by Joanna Ford. And she writes, Kwanzaa is a non-religious holiday that honors African American people and their heritage. Everyone can join us in the Kwanzaa celebration, which lasts from December 26th until January 1st. Kwanzaa was started in 1966 by Dr. Malana Karinga, an African American teacher. He wanted to help African Americans learn about their African history, culture, and customs. Dr. Karinga took the name of the holiday from the Swahili word Kwanzaa, K-W-A-N-Z-A, which means the first fruit of the harvest. The extra A was added so that the name would have 7 letters to match the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. First harvest, when crops are gathered in a time of great celebration in many regions of Africa. Like first harvest, Kwanzaa is an exciting and joyous occasion. Let's celebrate Kwanzaa from A to Z. And then she begins with the 7 principles, and they're called the Nguzo Zaba. This is a different principle. There's a different principle for each of the 7 days. The principles are used to guide us through the Kwanzaa celebration and to help us to think about the meaning of Kwanzaa. Although these principles are studied during the holiday season, we can continue to practice them every day. Good for you. Umoja, unity, means to celebrate on the first day of Kwanzaa, unity, meaning living together, peaceful as a family and a community. The second day we celebrate Kujichagulia, self-determination. Self-determination is deciding what we want to make our goals for ourselves and our community. This is practiced on the second day. Ujima, collective work and responsibility, is celebrated on the third day. Ujima means working together as a community to solve problems and take care of our neighbors. Ujama, cooperative economics, on the fourth day is studied. The principle teaches us values of owning and operating our own businesses. NIA, purpose, is studied on the fifth day. A good purpose is to try to be the best that we can be and to help make our community great. Kuumba is celebrated on the sixth day. Kuamba means making or doing something in our own unique way. Imani, faith. On the seventh day of Kwanzaa, Imani is practiced. We can show faith by believing in ourselves as well as other people. A in the Kwanzaa, A is for Kwanzaa alphabet. Africa is the second largest continent. It has many countries. An aside, not mentioned by the author, at this time, there are 58 countries on the continent of Africa. Back to the book. African American ancestors came from Africa. Kwanzaa is a holiday that celebrates the rich heritage of Africa. And there is a beautiful picture of Africa with all of the countries delineated in a different color. B is for Bandera. The Bandera is the African American flag that is displayed during Kwanzaa. It has 3 colors. Black represents African American people, red symbolizes their structure, and green stands for our happy future. C is for candle. A candle is a solid piece of wax with a string or wick inside of it that burns to make light. Kwanzaa candles are called Mushamu Saba. They are the same colors as the Bandera, red, black, and green. D is for dashiki. Dashiki is a loose-fitting shirt worn by men throughout Africa. Many African Americans wear dashikis during Kwanzaa to represent African pride. E is for mbe, and it is a mango. It's a fruit that grows in many parts of Africa. Mangoes are a part of some of Kwanzaa's dishes and are eaten alone as a sweet treat. There is a picture of a mango. F is for feast. A feast is a large meal shared by many people. On the last day of Kwanzaa, family and friends get together for a feast called the Karamu. And there's a picture of a great Karamu with all of the family sitting around the table eating a great meal of soul food. G is for Geli. A gele is a long, narrow strip of cloth that African women and girls wear wrapped around their heads. Wearing a gele shows pride in African heritage. H is for harvest. Harvest is a ripened crop of fruits and vegetables that is gathered at the end of the growing season. Many African villages celebrate and give thanks for their harvest each year. Kwanzaa comes from the African harvest celebration. I is for indigo. Indigo is a blue powder made from the indigo plant found in Africa. And in many areas of Africa, it is mixed with water and used to dye cloth. To celebrate Kwanzaa, we can dye pieces of cloth to honor this custom. J is for jewelry. Ornaments and such as bracelets, rings, earrings, and necklaces are jewelry made from precious gems and metals or beads or shells or strings. Beautiful jewelry is an important part of dressing in many African cultures. Making simple bracelets or necklaces as Kwanzaa gifts is a way of practicing creative kuumba and giving zawadi or gifts. K is for Kwanzaa and also the Kinara. The Kinara is a wooden candle holder that holds the 7 Kwanzaa candles. The black candle is placed in the middle, the red candles and the green candles are placed on each side. The black candle is lit on the first night of Kwanzaa. Each one of the following candles, one candle is lit on red side the first night, the second night on the green fourth, and back and forth throughout the celebration. L is for lapa. A lapa is a broad piece of cloth that African women and girls wear wrapped around their bodies like a skirt. Lapas are popular African-style clothing worn at Kwanzaa time. M is for mkika. The mkika is a special mat that is set on the Kwanzaa table. The Kinara and Mezoa, fruits and vegetables symbolizing the harvest, are placed on the mkika. N is for neighborhood. A neighborhood is a small part of a community that we live in. Kwanzaa teaches us to respect our neighborhood and to work together to make it a better place. O is for Owara. It is an African game played with marbles or small stones. It's also called a mankela. Playing games together is a fun way to show unity and cooperation during Kwanzaa. P is for plants. Plants grow in the earth from seeds. Some plants provide us with fruits and vegetables. After harvesting the crops in Africa, it is time to plant new seeds. At Kwanzaa time, plan a small garden, indoors or out, to welcome in the new year. Q is for quilt. A quilt is a bed cover stitched together from many small pieces of fabric. Create a Kwanzaa quilt with African fabrics and family items that have some special meaning. R, raffia. It is a fiber that comes from the leaves of certain African palm trees. Raffia is used to make masks or to weave baskets, bags, and mats like the mkita. F is the shekere. Shekere is a rhythm instrument made from a dry, hollow gourd that is stringed with beads. It is played for African dancers and ceremonies and at Kwanzaa celebrations. T is for tales, like the one you're getting from the griot today. Tales are stories that can be true or make believe. Reading and telling African tales, such as Asane stories, is a popular Kwanzaa activity. U is for Ujamaa. Ujamaa is one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. It means cooperative economics. At Ujamaa markets, we can buy African and African American products such as kente cloth, jewelry, and food. Verbunzi is another word for muhindi, which are dried ears of corn placed on the mkika. Corn is a very important Kwanzaa symbol. Corn represents children and our future children and family. W is for water. Water is a clear natural liquid. It is a symbol of purity in many countries. During Kwanzaa, water is poured into a cup, into the ground, or into the kikambo cha umoja, and everyone drinks a special toast to the ancestors. X is for a xylophone. It is a musical instrument with bars that are struck to make a sound. Some xylophones are made from wood, and they are used in songs and dances in some homes at Kwanzaa time. Y is for yam. Yams are vegetables similar to potatoes. They are an important part of the African diet. Yams and other vegetables are eaten at the Karamu feast. And finally, Z is for zawadi. A zawadi means gift, a simple gift exchanged at Kwanzaa. These gifts should be educational, cultural, or related to family values. Homemade items such as cornstalk dolls, wooden cars, quilts, homemade books, and games are great gifts. And that ends our story. A celebration of Kwanzaa from A to Z. K is for Kwanzaa is a unique alphabet book for young children and a wonderful introduction to the African American holiday. Each letter of the alphabet represents an important word or fascinating fact about Kwanzaa. The brilliant pictures brought forth the life of Kwanzaa, the cultural heritage, the family, and community. This was a wonderful book, and it was written by Joanna G. Ford and illustrated by Ken Wilson Max. Sorry you couldn't see the beautiful illustrations, but I would encourage you to look for this book at your children's bookstore today. Well, it looks as though time is just about caught up with us for this celebration of Kwanzaa. Our principle of the day was NIA Purpose, and we shared with you the basic NIA as conceived by the developer of Kwanzaa, Dr. Malana Karinga. And we had the pleasure of sharing some Kuumba by Joanna Ford in her wonderful and delightful book for children called K.S. Kwanzaa. So next time we'll be celebrating the next principle of Kwanzaa. We hope you join us then. Today's session was sponsored by the Samuel L. Smith Educational Foundation, by the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, Nevada. I'm your host, Dr. Al Gurrier. Thank you for your time today. Abarigani, my brothers and sisters.